May 26th, and a sold-out crowd is seated on the west lawn of the U.S. Capitol. It's the 2024 National Memorial Day concert, and the crowd has been enraptured with the stories of numerous veterans from battle. The crowd hushes as the main presenter is introduced. It's Emmy Award-winning actor Bryan Cranston, a proud son of 2 World War II soldiers. But he's not here to talk about them. Today, he's narrating the story of Jack Moran, a soldier who was only in the war for less than a year, but in that time took part in some of its most famous battles.
We were just a bunch of smart-ass kids, 17 and 18. We thought it was going to be an adventure. We didn't have any fear. We were just, let's get over there. Let's get into the fight. Our first day in action was in the Saar Valley.
Cranston details some of Jack Moran's experiences for the crowd. How he witnessed 7 men die in his first 15 seconds of battle in the Saar Valley. How he became a squad leader when his friends and commander were killed on Hill 360. How he crossed the Rhine River during a heavy onslaught of attacks. How he helped to liberate Buchenwald. His stories are filled with battle, death, sadness, friendship, and the ultimate victory for freedom. After detailing Jack Moran's story, Cranston pauses.
My mind goes back to the guys who fought and died right next to me. The guys I lost on Hill 360, the saddest day of my life. And when I close my eyes, I can still see it all. The price we paid to win that war was staggering. So many men never got the chance to be a good parent or a loving husband. They lost everything. And I thank God every single day for protecting and saving me. Sometimes I don't think I deserve all the good fortune I've had. And, well, there aren't many of us left. War is a terrible thing, but that war was so important. Making it out alive means you're here for a purpose. You're on a mission. I give talks to young people. I share my story. I hope I can inspire pride in their country, an appreciation for the sacrifices and suffering so many people endure to protect our way of life. If I can do that, then it'll be worth every drop of blood we shed.
As the presentation ends, the crowd starts to applaud, and the camera zooms in on an older man in the crowd. He's about to shed a tear. And then the crowd realizes that this is him, 98-year-old Jack Moran. Cranston walks over to Jack, and the crowd rises to its feet, honoring the soldier who fully experienced the tragedies of the war and lived to share his story. The 2 men embrace as Jack struggles to hold back his tears. Jack has been sharing his story for the last 70-plus years, but now gets to experience someone else relaying it to the entire country. In today's episode, our hosts have the honor of sitting down with Jack Moran himself to discuss his stories from the war, what life was like after the travails of Europe, and how he ended up living a very wonderful life. I'm Carrie Varo-Heikis, and this is Army Matters.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lieutenant General Retired Leslie C. Smith.
Hey, Smith.
And today, like every day that we do one of these podcasts, I'm joined by my best buddy, my good friend,
Sergeant in the Army retired, Dan Dailey.
So, what are we talking about today, Dan?
You know what we're going to talk about?
What?
the greatest generation.
The greatest generation.
Let me
that's
say
that's not us.
Let me try it one more time.
Okay,
The greatest generation.
generation.
Yes.
Okay.
That is us.
No, that's not us.
No.
That's before us.
Before us. The one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
The greatest generation. The World War II era.
what do you think about that when you hear that phrase?
Well, I think I'm amazed by it because, the greatest generation went overseas, won a world war, came back and thrust America into an industrial revolution of which we all benefit from to this very day. They're incredible. The resiliency, the grit, the drive, the melting pot of the world came together and then fought tyranny and won.
You mean tyranny?
Tyranny.
Yeah.
Or tyrant. They're tyrants.
Okay.
Tyranny.
I think one's a tyranny and one's a tyrant.
But
I guess is that a
did it.
Pennsylvania versus Georgia thing?
Focus on the main subject of the.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Fought. They fought and won. Anyway,
but on two continents, right?
On two continents,
Pacific and Europe.
and
I mean,
Europe.
that's huge.
It's huge. So let me ask you this, Les.
Yeah.
Which member of the greatest generation inspired you the most?
So my uncle was in the 11th Airborne.
Mm.
Yeah, and I have a picture of him that one of my aunts, they never let me have it. They let me look at it.
Yeah.
But you know how you have the picture when you went to jump school or when you're in your uniform?
Mm-hmm.
They had the same one, but it was a different type of picture, right? So it's almost like it was painted, but it was a picture.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, this is pretty cool. So, even though I don't know what he did in the 11th, that was just very inspirational to me.
Did you get to meet him?
I did not.
Oh.
I did not. But I've met many Tuskegee Airmen, especially my younger years in the Army, to meet those men and the things that they did and the missions they did as part of the Red Tail. So that impressed me. But it's so many that I've met. And,
Oh, yeah.
How about you?
Well, my grandfather would be.
Your grandfather?
Yeah,
Wow.
my grandfather was a bombardier in the Army Air Corps.
Okay.
And he died when I was very young, but I remember him in the kitchen playing the mouth harp. You remember those? I mean, that was like, yeah. And I remember that he was missing. He used to tease us all the time. He said, "You little boys, grab the dog. He took my toe." And we would literally chase the dogs around thinking they took our grandfather's toe, but it was shot off. It was shot off during World War II.
That's so crazy.
And we'd spend I think he was smart. He was witty and he was humble and honest, and he didn't have much, but they had each other, him and my grandmother,
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, like you said, being around so many of the veterans and veteran organizations throughout the years, when I was a staff sergeant, I was in the Audie Murphy Club, so I got an opportunity to go to Kansas City to be the escorts for the 1st Infantry Division reunion. And these World War II veterans were amazing. The stories they told, boy, they could drink some liquor. I was young. I didn't drink back then. I mean, but it was amazing how sharp they were and how they remembered it all. But the most incredible thing to me is 40 years afterwards, they were still like brothers.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just...
Yeah, you're right.
And none of them bragged about what they did.
Right.
The stories they told, you were like, "Oh my God!" But to them, it was just doing their job.
That reminds me of going to the 82nd Airborne Convention. Everybody has them, and you would hear them talk about the things they did. It really was like that. Yeah,
it really was.
Yeah, jumping out of planes with parachutes that may or may not work.
So, Les, the reason why we're talking about this is because we actually have a member of the greatest generation right here with us today, and we're going to get the opportunity to talk with him. His name is Staff Sergeant Jack Moran. Jack, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Now, sir, we're going to spend some time talking about your brave experiences during World War II. But before we do, I'd like to talk about something else first. Beer. I noticed in your bio that you worked for a very famous beer company, the Schlitz Brewing Company. Now, I'm a home brewer myself, and I have a passion for that. But can you tell us more about the experience working with Schlitz and is the old commercial true? If you run out of slits, you run out of beer.
I started out just as a labor scheduler on the second shift because I was going to Marquette University. I'd have classes all day long, and I'd hop on a bus, go down to the brewery at 4 o'clock, and stay there till midnight, and then go home and hop into bed and get up 6-7 hours later and start the same routine over and over. But they're a great company. They were the biggest brewery in the world at that time, bigger than Budweiser.
Oh, wow.
And it was a good product too. I still think it's better than Budweiser, but that's just a personal matter.
So, sir, tell us about where you're from, Superior, Wisconsin.
Right.
Yeah, tell us about your upbringing.
Yeah, it was an idyllic place to live. There's a million lakes up there, and you can have a lake all to yourself anytime you want. But just fishing, swimming all day long, running through the woods, just having a great time. And then when September 1st, we moved back into town, went back to school. But then it was hunting and fishing, hunting upland birds and like grouse and partridge in September, duck hunting in October, deer hunting in November, rabbit hunting in January, skiing, skating, tobogganing, ice fishing. It was just, we always had something to do. It was just a wonderful place to grow up in.
Did you have any family members who served prior to your World War II experience?
No. Oh, my dad in World War I was not active. He stayed in the United States. He got in late in the war and stayed in the United States. And my brother was also in World War II, but he developed scarlet fever upon entering the service, and so he had to go into limited service. So he worked in an office someplace all the rest of the war while I was over in Europe.
Okay. So why did you enlist at the age of 17? That's kind of early. So your parents had to help you with that, right?
Yes, and the government at that time was offering some good packages, some good options. I chose the Army. The minute I turned 18, they sent me down to the University of Wisconsin in Madison to go into the engineering studies. And we expected to be there for 6 months or a year. But in the fall, the United States Army took a beating in the Kasserine Pass in Italy, a very bad beating. So General Bradley told the government, we need some more bodies. And the 19-year-old kids were the bodies, 18 and 19-year-old kids were the ones that are sent to fight every war. So they canceled our program, pulled us out of the universities all over the country, and put us in the infantry, assigned us to different divisions. And I was sent to the 87th Division. And in the summertime, we got ready to go to Europe. And in the fall, we went to Europe.
Okay. So talk to us about your experience battling the 11th Panzer Division. The Panzer Divisions were probably one of the toughest German organizations because of their capabilities and training. So talk to us about the Panzer Division that you fought against in the Saar Valley and what happened.
Yeah, it was brutal. Every day we lose anywhere from 20 to 30 people. The Germans had better tanks than we had. They had the Tiger tank, which was far better than our Shermans. The Germans also had a better machine gun. They had their number 42 machine gun, for example, would fire at the rate of 1,200 rounds a minute, which means that every second, 20 bullets are coming out the end of that barrel. It's just almost like a beam of light. Our machine guns, by comparison, were at about 425 rounds a minute. In the very first morning, the signal came for us to get up out of our foxholes and start advancing across this land. We got up and started to advance, and within 15 seconds, 7 of our men were down. An 88 exploded about 50 feet to my right, knocking down 3 of our guys. I remember their names very well. Machine guns opened up on the left and hit a number of our men. One of my dear friends got hit in the face. With a weapon firing 1,200 rounds a minute, you can't, if it hits you, you can't drop. because the second bullet is right behind the first one. He spent 4 years in military hospitals being put back together, and he did 13 operations on him before he was able to go home. So anyway, as we crossed just all this open land, the 88s would come screaming in, and if you heard the 88, that means it didn't get you, because it was so fast that it went faster than the speed of sound. So the 88 bullet, the shell actually, was past you, but by the time you heard the scream of it going by you. But it was very sad, because it just unexpectedly they could see us and we couldn't see them. It took us. I don't think we saw our first Germans until about the third day we were in action, and we already lost a great number of men. They were picking us off, but we finally got to them at the end of our movement through the Saar Valley. We came to a town called Obergehlbach, and there's a big hill called Hill 360.
So, Jack, when exactly was that? Do you remember the date?
Well, December 16th, 1944 was the toughest day of my life. We had to go up Hill 360 to attack the Germans, and we did, and we lost quite a few men going up the hill. In fact, I lost my 4 best friends that afternoon. It was very sad. When you go into a place, into a group of people, naturally you form a little friendship group. You know a lot of people, but just some of them are special people to you. They're more sure your friends. We lost a lot of men that afternoon, but my 4 best friends were taken down, and late in the day we moved up the hill. I somehow survived, got to the top of the hill, and there was a rock pile there. It was open rock pile, so I jumped in there with an old Army sergeant, and the 2 of us were there. And our 105s were coming in and crashing in front of us to keep the Germans away from us. They came in so close that the old sergeant that was in the hold with me started to bleed from his nose was bleeding and the ears were bleeding. They had to take him out of there, so I was all alone in that foxhole up there. And I learned late in the day that one of the lieutenants came up to me and said, "Jack, Tommy Langston's dead," among others. "You are now the squad leader. You are now a sergeant, and you are the squad leader." So you get every time someone gets killed, someone gets promoted. We were relieved late that night and got a chance to go back down into a old farmhouse, buildings down below, have a cup of coffee and some crackers. That was all they had for us. But that was just a bad day in my life because I lost my 4 friends.
Oh, wow. So you were at Hill 360 and you lost 4 your best friends. But how did they move you from Hill 360 to the Battle of the Bulge? Because these 2 things were happening very close to the same time. How'd they get you there?
Right. We stayed there in that area for a day or 2, and then the word came down that General Bradley had a meeting with General Montgomery of England and General Patton. And he said, "Fellas, I need some help up in Belgium. We got a problem up there, big problem." So Montgomery said, "Well, I can be up there in 4 days." And Patton, not to be ever be outdone by Montgomery, said, "I'll be up there in 2 days." Eisenhower said, "That's impossible and you can't do it." He did it. We were up there in 40 hours. We traveled in open bed trucks, freezing to death. We had no blankets, no bedrolls, just the clothes on our backs. And night and day we drove. And we were strafed once along the way by a German plane. I don't know if it was Messerschmitt or what, but we all had to bail out of our trucks for a few hours while this German plane strafed us. But we got up there in 40 hours, and we were ready to go.
And you helped reinforce the units there and help save the day.
Yes. We had no change of clothes. We had no hot food. In fact, we didn't change clothes. I went 28 days without taking my clothes off, and 28 days without brushing my teeth. We had no toothbrushes. We had no toothpaste. We were just filthy dirty. But we were alive.
Did you know that as a member of AUSA, you have access to many benefits, from car rental to entertainment discounts? The opportunities are ample. Visit us online at ausa.org/benefits to learn more.
Welcome back to Army Matters. Now, sir, can you tell our listeners about the work you did to help liberate the Buchenwald Concentration Camp? I've been there, and that's a pretty tough space, even 50 years after that time frame. That must have been really tough to do.
Yeah, it was. It was so sad to see what was left. The Germans had fled, and just all we saw was, of course, was these skeletons, these living skeletons moving around there, and the bodies in the pits. The Germans, I think some of the Germans have been ordered to kill all the people, prisoners there before they left, but they didn't do that, thank God. So we had a number of people, and they were so happy to see us, and except that we opened up our K ration. We give them chocolate bars out of our K rations, or some of the meat, little tins of meat that are in there. They were just so thrilled to be free. General Eisenhower ordered shortly after it was liberated that all the people in the surrounding cities had to come through and walk through it and look at it also. So we rounded up a lot of German people and made them come up to the camp and see what the Germans had done. Some of them probably suspected, because of the smoke, the terrible smoke that came out of this place when they were burning its bodies, suspected that something bad was going on, but they didn't know.
Yeah. So, Jack, what do you remember about coming back from the war? The war's over now. There's victory in Europe. Tell the story about how emotional it was for you to come home from that experience.
Well, it was fantastic to go home and feel free. Mm-hmm. The day the Japanese surrendered was around early in August of 1945. And that day I was with my mother and dad. We were up at the American Legion club rooms, and I was on furlough. And the news came through that the Japanese surrendered, and of course that made us all so happy. We just started a great party. In fact, with my friends, I think we partied for 2 or 3 months, but it was just wonderful to be free and be home. Went right back to college as soon as I could, and met a wonderful young lady, and we fell in love, and we got married in 1947. And she was a wonderful woman and the love of my life.
Oh, that's amazing.
And we had 2 children in Wisconsin, and two lovely young ladies, and came to California, and we adopted 2 other children in California.
That's amazing.
So I became reasonably successful in business. I was able to provide a good home. Always had new homes for my children and my wife, and we had a good life. We had a wonderful life.
Yeah. If you could go back and talk to the buddies, your best friends you lost in the war, and you had one more chance to say something to them, sir, what would you say?
Oh, God. Of course, looking back at the fact that they did die, I just say I loved you guys. It was so sad. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry that you didn't have a chance to go home and be a loving husband and a wonderful father and a wonderful grandfather, and share that joy that I shared. I wish you all could have had it.
That's powerful. Thanks for sharing that. Over the last few decades, you've continued to find ways to serve our great country. And one of those is by talking to our kids at high school about your experiences during the war. What have you found so rewarding about those talks?
Oh, I enjoy meeting these young people in there. I get letters, any number of letters from them after each time I spoke with them. They're just wonderful young kids, and when I see them and see the interest they have, it gives me some hope for the future that these are going to be successful young people, the ones that show great interest in what we have to say. And they're going to go on to become leaders in our industry and hopefully in politics.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know they enjoy having you come talk to them as well. Sir, Les and I spent the better part of our lives serving the country, and you just talked about how you served our country and the people of Europe during a very troubling time in the world. What does service mean to you?
Oh, you have to be dedicated, of course. There are any number of people who try to avoid service in different ways. I was only 19. And I'd see someone 25 years old. That was a man to me. But I've seen men in their middle 20s sitting on the floor, bawling like a baby, tears running down their cheeks, saying, I can't stand this anymore. I've got to get out of here. I can't take it. But of course, you couldn't let anybody go, because if one guy went, you'd have to let somebody else go. We never could permit that. So it was tough. Having survived it, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I served my country that way. I'm glad I served my loved ones that way. And I do it. I hold my head up with pride and say that I gave all I could give.
Well, we thank you for being on the show, but more importantly, sir, thank you for being the greatest generation. Thank you for keeping America free.
That's right.
And thank you for your incredible service.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Every October, AUSA hosts its annual meeting and expo. And at the 2024 event, we invited attendees to swing by our booth and answer some questions. One thing we asked everyone was, what drew you to a life of service and inspired you to continue? Today, we'll find out how a young officer was encouraged by his father to serve, but was confused at the beginning.
Robert L. Robinson Jr., Stafford, Virginia. Well, my father is a Vietnam vet, and he's a senior. And I was about 18 years old. We had a conversation about serving the country, and he told me that if you're going to do something now, outstanding, something unique, join the military. The thing about it, when I joined the military, he didn't speak to me for the whole entire basic training AIT. So when I finished up my career and I came home and I asked him, why didn't you talk to me? Why didn't you reply to my mail, my phone calls, anything? And he said, I need you to stay focused and realize that joining the military is serious. It is not a game. And now I'm proud of you.
And when did he realize he loved being in the Army?
I got recruited to go to the White House. So I started during the President Bush second inauguration. You're all over the place, traveling all over the world, doing all these, traveling with support with the White House Transportation Agency, which falls in the White House Military Office. And you know the level that you're at, dealing with cabinet members, and so you travel with the president. And but when President Obama got inaugurated, I was at one of our White House garages that we dealt with. So that night, being in the house when he got elected, and I said, wow, and they gave us all the keys to the Capitol. And I did the motorcade to get the family in. And they gave me all my badges the day before the inauguration. And they said, you're free for the day. Go do what you want to do. And I'm sitting here like, how in the world am I going to get to the Capitol? And the guys told me, hey, we're going to walk from 22nd Street to the Capitol. And I said, oh, that's a long walk. No other way to get around. So I walked. And when I walked down the center of Pennsylvania Avenue, and everybody was like wall to wall on both sides. I'm walking down the middle of the road, talking to all Secret Service because I knew them. And that's when I realized that a small guy from Canton, Mississippi left, and I'm at the peak of my career. So in my military career, that was that moment. I realized I made the right decision.
If you'd like to share with us your call to service or Army story, leave us a voicemail at 703-236-2914 or email a voice note to podcast@ausa.org.
To all our listeners, thanks for joining us. Army Matters is brought to you by the Association of the United States Army, the U.S. Army's professional association, member-supported, Army-connected. Visit us at AUSA.org for more information or to become a member. Your membership helps AUSA continue to carry out its mission, educate, inform, and connect with the total Army, our industry partners, and supporters of a strong national defense. Today's episode was hosted by Lieutenant General Retired Les Smith and SMA Retired Dan Dailey, and anchor hosted by Carrie Barrow-Heckes. Anthony Del Call is the producer and writer, and Andy Bosnack is the supervising sound editor. Ellen Toner is the content editor. Unzinga Curry is the executive producer, and the senior producers are Carrie Barrow-Heckes and LaSharon Duncan. Be sure to subscribe to Army Matters wherever you get your podcasts, and please leave a review. As you know, we love seeing stars in the Army, especially if it comes in the form of a 5-star review. AUSA's Army Matters podcast can also be heard on Reach Across America Radio on Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, on the iHeartRadio app, the Odyssey app, and the TuneIn app with the search of the word Wreath. AUSA's Army Matters podcast primary purpose is to entertain. The podcast does not constitute advice or services. While guests are invited to listen, listeners, please note that you're not being provided professional advice from the podcast or the guest. The views and opinions of our guests do not necessarily reflect the views of AUSA. For questions or to provide topic recommendations, email us at podcast@ausa.org. I'm LaSharon Duncan. Hope you have a great Army Day. Hooah!